And now, VermontViews.org contributor Shanta asks you to ponder this.
This was a short piece written by a friend and shared with his permission. I must give the disclaimer that he is a man of color and also approached this from the angle of posing questions, not attacking. And his post was something like this. What if we relented and agreed that all lives matter? Wouldn't that help us focus on the big picture? Isn't life supposed to include all forms of life? Does this debate just evidence repressive, arrogant, myopic, and ungrateful human nature? Is there a time man has to be a good fellow for man? Have we failed to see how far we've come and consequently failed to see how far we can go? I just think it is like a blank piece of metal through hammering and heating is shaped into a fine samurai sword. So is humanity getting shaped. Of course, there is some online and offline discussion around this post. I continued to have a conversation with my friend who made this original post and talked about more questions, especially as it related to other recent movements. What were some of the things that did not work with Occupy Wall Street? We talked about some of the goals and eventual disbandment of the North Dakota protests and so many other movements or protests that we saw come and go. In this mix of movements and our initial start of the conversation, Black Lives Matter, we talked about the longevity of movements. It was finally a safe space for me to share some of my thoughts about the depth of sadness of needing to remind a community or overall society that I matter. I also shared some of what I witnessed growing up in a community of color and feeling like we also needed to figure out ways to matter more to ourselves and illustrate this through everything we're doing towards each other, beyond words. During this brief dialogue, I shared that I rarely had a chance to have such a candid talk. On one occasion, while at a party, an acquaintance, who was not a person of color, and I happened upon the topic of Black Lives Matter. Just as I mentioned, I was still trying to explore some of the long-term goals of it. She immediately lectured about the need for all of us to support the movement. This piece is less about any movement in particular, and more about our inability to be so passionate about issues that we just don't ask the tough or critical questions. How do we properly address or explore which road or actions to take if we are just blind followers? How do we engage in dialogue, critical thinking, or discourse with each other if we don't give each other the space to ask questions, especially as it relates to the rise, maintenance, and/or fall of social movements?